So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Welcome back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Monday, July 12th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. Hopefully everybody had a very good weekend, coming off of another big weekend, another weekend with a lot of sports on. Obviously, Yankees had a 3-game set against the Astros. The NBA Finals were on. You had all different types of sports on over the weekend, so hopefully everybody enjoyed all the sports that were on. Obviously, a little bit of a break in the baseball action before we get to the next Thursday game, or this upcoming Thursday game against the Red Sox. Obviously, Yankees day off today, day off tomorrow, day off Wednesday, and then they return to action Thursday as they play against the Red Sox. So a little bit of a break in the action, but overall, I thought, overall, I think I'm excited for the All-Star game. I'm excited for, the Home Run Derby. It's not one of those things where it's like, you're bummed that no games are on. You still got the Home Run Derby. Obviously, tonight is the Home Run Derby, and the All-Star game is tomorrow night, so you still get all that action. You still get all that exciting stuff there. Obviously the Yankees had a 3-game set this weekend against the Astros. You win the first two. It's looking great. You go into the 9th inning of the second game, and, it's one of those things where you're going to the All-Star break, you're up 7-2. All you needed to do is just find a way to get 3 more outs, and they'll say it. Sometimes those are the hardest 3 outs to get, is because I'm sure your mind's probably getting ready for, your mind's probably focused on the All-Star break. You're so close to just getting the win, and the Yankees blow it. And the Yankees blow the game yesterday, and it really stinks because, we had a great series, right? We won the first 2 games. We looked really good doing it. I mean, Garrett Cole, I will get to in a little bit, so I don't want to wait. I don't want to take too much time on him and say a lot of things that I'm going to say later. Garrett Cole was dominant in his Saturday start. And, it was a 129-pitch start, the complete game shutout, just something that you don't see very often. And, especially with everything going on with him and his recent struggles, he pretty much just pretty much went out there and dominated and did it in his own way. And that's why we paid Garrett Cole $300 million, was to go out there, pitch 9 innings. And another thing is he's the $300 million man because when Boone came out there to take him out, he was fired up. He said, "This is my game." Gave him a couple of words that won't be repeated, and he went out there, threw 3 fastballs up in the zone to Alvarez. They win that game. And then you go into yesterday 7-2, and it looks great, and it looked great, and you're like, oh my gosh, like the Yankees here, we're going to go in and sweep the Astros, and you're like, wow. And, the Yankees, with the Judge jersey pull. And I was talking to someone yesterday, too, about this. Like, it looks like the Yankees were finally having fun. Like, the Yankees were starting to get some passion, and then they blow the game. So, it's frustrating to lose that game. As a Yankee fan, it's hard not to sit here and just talk about yesterday's game. But, if you look at it, we did win the series. So, it's not like we got swept and we lost like that. Or, it's not like that was the rubber game and it was tied series 1-1, and that's the way we lost. We still won the series. We did not get the sweep, but we still win the series. And another positive outlook on it is we're 4-2 this season against the Astros. I would have loved to be 5-1, but both times the Astros have gotten the last laugh. The first series, we won the first 2 games. They won the last one. They got the last laugh. This series, again, won the first 2. They got the last one. So, Astros fans really can't talk right now because we are still 4-2 against them. But it does hurt a little bit to lose that game. It doesn't hurt a little bit. It hurts a lot. And it is concerning to see them lose that game. Like now, our bullpen now is all of a sudden a concern. So, Yankees lose yesterday. They do win the series, though. Get the job done on Friday with a nice start by Nestor Cortez. Get the job done on Saturday with a dominant start from Cole. And, did not get the job done yesterday. Obviously, it's frustrating because, Tyone pitched well, and his last 4 starts have been very good. So you waste a good start out of him. But at the end of the day, you head in. This series is behind us. Now you got to focus up on Boston, which starts on Thursday after the All-Star break. Mets also blew a game yesterday. They got a 5-0 lead in the first inning. They ended up losing 6-5. So neither New York teams yesterday were able to hold on to a lead. And yeah, like I mentioned, All-Star break. So home run derby's on tonight. Should be very exciting. I'm pumped up for it. All-Star game tomorrow night. And then Wednesday's a day off. Then the Yankees play Thursday. So Judge, Chapman, Cole will be at the All-Star game. I don't believe Cole's going to pitch because he did throw 129 pitches. So he wanted to pitch, but they said it felt best to look at the big picture and rest him. So he won't pitch in the All-Star game. I do believe he still will be there. He just won't pitch. I'm assuming Chapman and Judge still will play. So I've not heard anything on them. Cole will be there. He's not going to pitch, though. After he threw 129 pitches, the pitch 3 days later, for a game that doesn't mean anything, it kind of makes sense why they are not going to pitch him. So, with that being said, let's get to the topics for today's Monday podcast. As always, a lot to get to on the Monday. I'm going to get into the Yankee series recap to start it off. As always, kick it off with the Yankee series recap. I usually do this, really at the end of the series. Not I always do this, but I felt this was a good series to do it. It was against the Astros. It was against, our rivals, against the team who cheated. It was the first time we were back at, Minute Maid Park since the 2019 playoffs, and obviously since the 2019 postseason, and we ended up losing against them. And, we weren't able to get the job done and all that stuff. So I want to get into the Yankee series recap, get into all that stuff, get into kind of just, my thoughts on it, and kind of, a little bit of a recap in terms of the first half of the season. Because I felt like yesterday's game, that ninth inning summed up how the first half of the season has went for the New York Yankees. And I mean that. It's been an up and down year. It's been a year with, a lot of negatives. It's been a year with, some positives. It's been a year with some great performances. It's been such a weird year for the Yankees. It's been a down year to not, say the least. I felt like Sunday's game was a perfect representation of how this year's went. You have some good games, and you're terrible. You have some good games, you're terrible. You play 8 good innings, and then you blow it in the ninth. So, we get into the Yankees and the series recap. The MLB Draft was yesterday. I usually don't do too much about the MLB Draft. I talked a little bit about it last year in the MLB Draft. But I decided this year to talk about Jack Leiter. He got selected number 2 overall to the Texas Rangers. As we all know, I've talked about Leiter a couple times on this podcast. Son of Al Leiter, former pitcher in the MLB, had a pretty successful career there. Obviously a 2-time All-Star, played with the Mets for a little bit, played a little bit with the Yankees. He had a successful career. And his son, Jack Leiter, who went to Vanderbilt, has been very successful in college, has been very successful so far throughout his career. He got drafted number 2 overall to the Rangers. I want to get into that, talk about, what he's going to bring to the table, and talk about if he's going to have success in the MLB. So I'll get into him. Then we'll finish off the podcast with the New York Sports Update. As always, get into the New York Sports Update. Phoenix Suns yesterday did not get the win. Milwaukee Bucks won, so the Bucks moved to 1-2 in the series now, and the series is now tied up 2-1. The Suns are up. So tomorrow day off as well. Wednesday's the next game. So tomorrow they have a day off. Wednesday's game 4. And as I mentioned with the Suns, you just got to find a way to take 1 in Milwaukee, and if you do, you're looking good. You head back home, game 5, you got a 3-1 lead. Now, if you lose on Wednesday, all of a sudden, things are getting interesting. Because then it's 2-2, and you head into game 5, and that's got to be a must-win. Because if you lose that game 3-2, got to go back to Milwaukee, things start to get a little cloudy from there. So, big game Wednesday now. It's just crazy how 1 win can all of a sudden change the trajectory of the series. I still believe the Suns will win in 6 games. I'm just saying, game 4 now, you got to find a way to win. And last night it was not pretty. The Bucks started that game well and finished well. They played 4 very good quarters, 48 minutes of very good basketball. They were the better team last night. So the Suns got to find a way to come out game 4. With what they did in games 1 and 2, they got to do that. Because they were not the Suns in game 1 and 2. And I'm not saying that because they lost. They weren't. They were just not. They were not the same team. They were not playing the same way. They were just not good. The Bucks were a different team. And they came out, home court, fed off the fans and was really good. So we'll get into that obviously later on. Yankees and Mets both on the All-Star break. And then, the home run derbies tonight. So with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So the New York Yankees have officially finished off their first half of the 2021 first half of the MLB season, and obviously it was a very interesting first half to say the least. It was a first half with a lot of negatives, I would say. Definitely some negatives. Some issues around the clubhouse. I shouldn't say issues around the clubhouse, but some, there's been some rumors and some, debate around, who should get fired, who should get traded, should this guy be on the team, should we get rid of this guy, and all that stuff. And it's kind of how it was for the New York Yankees. And like I said, I'll get to the series recap in a second, but I did want to just kind of recap the first half of the season, and I will probably try to get to the Mets tomorrow, I think, kind of recap their first half of the season. But with the Yankees, it's simple. I mean, the Yankees did not have a good first half of the season. They were not what we thought the New York Yankees would be. And you look at the first half, and you probably think, to start this season, you're like, okay, what we expect is the Yankees to be first place coming out of the first half. And right now, the Yankees are standing at 46-43, and they're 8 games back. So this first half of the season was definitely not what Yankees fans, nor did the New York Yankees themselves expect. And I don't think anyone's satisfied with them being 46-43. And if you're satisfied with that, okay, good. You could be satisfied with being 3 games above 500. I'm not satisfied with that. I know many other Yankees fans are not satisfied with 46-43 and being 8 games back in the division. And, at the beginning of the season, the expectation was to win the division. You look at the division, and you're looking at Orioles. Red Sox had a terrible year. No one expected the Red Sox to be this good. I thought the Rays were not going to be that good. I said I thought it was going to be Yankees and the Blue Jays. Boy, was I wrong. I thought with the Rays losing some of their key pitchers, I just did not think they were going to be able to do it. Red Sox were terrible last season. Then you go into the Orioles, and they're obviously in a rebuild. And the Orioles are bad. I was right on that. They're not good, but that's not a hard prediction to make. They're just a bad team. And then you look at the Yankees and the Blue Jays, and I was like, in terms of talent and roster, these two I think will be fighting. And I said that. And I said the Rays would be a third. And was I wrong. And I will admit when I'm wrong. Right now, it's the Red Sox in first place, Rays in second place. The Yankees and Blue Jays are technically tied, although in this list it has the Blue Jays fourth, the Blue Jays third, Yankees fourth, and then the Orioles are in last place. Obviously, they aren't even close. People, you don't even want to go to the Orioles at this point. They are a terrible team. They're 26 games back. They're not good. They're in a rebuild. They're not expected to be good. But it was definitely an underwhelming first half of the season for the New York Yankees in so many levels. And I've talked about it so many times. I've talked about it throughout the months, throughout the game. So I'm not going to go back and recap it all because I've talked about it a lot. But I will say it's been a very underwhelming first half of the season, and we need to be much better in the second half. We can't come out in the second half and struggle like this and expect to make the playoffs. We got to be a whole lot better. So in terms of that, let's get to the series with the New York Yankees. Obviously, the Yankees just finished up a 3-game set against the Astros, and the Yankees won on Friday night, looked good doing it 4-0. They played well. They won Friday night, looked good doing it 4-0, and the Yankees, Nestor Cortez with another good start, they win 4-0. And then you go into Saturday, and Garrett Cole's start was just amazing, by far his best start as a New York Yankee. I don't know if this is going to start anything crazy. Comment down below your thoughts. I felt like Saturday rather. I thought like Saturday night, I felt was more, and maybe it was because they were in Houston, the crowd, full capacity. It's a bigger name pitcher. Again, it's two, teams. Yankees are coming in, trying to win Garrett Cole's former team. Maybe it's because of that, although Corey Kluber's former team was the Rangers. I felt like this, nothing to take away from the Corey Kluber no-hitter. I felt like this start, in terms of energy and me just sitting there watching that game, not being able to sit. I will admit I was standing in that 9th inning. I could not sit down. I was doing the scorebook standing. I will tell you that I felt like that Saturday night game with Garrett Cole was a little bit more energy than the no-hitter with Corey Kluber. And maybe that's just me. Maybe it was because it was a nationally televised game. Corey Kluber's happened in a Tuesday night in Texas Rangers against a bad team. And maybe it was just because, the crowd wasn't as big. Cole had a bigger impact on Houston than Corey Kluber did on Texas. Corey Kluber pitched 1 inning, and that was it for him. I mean, Cole really grew a name for himself when he went to Houston. So if I feel like that way, comment down below. I wanted to get that out of the way. I know a lot of people would disagree with me and say, oh, well, he pitched a no-hitter. You can't take away from no-hitter. I'm not talking about the no-hitter aspect. I'm more talking about just in terms of the energy, the hype up, like the nervousness, like just me as a Yankee fan sitting there watching that final inning unfold. I was just like more nervous, I think, than the Corey Kluber no-hitter. And I think there was more energy. I think there was more like an intensity in terms of the Garrett Cole. And maybe that's also just because of Garrett Cole, and he just seems to always bring a lot of energy to the mound. Maybe that's just me. Sure, some people disagree, but that's my opinion on it. And then obviously yesterday, the Yankees lost 8-7. And like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I think yesterday's 9th inning was a pure representation of the New York Yankees' first half of the season. And it's not that they've blown all these games. It's not that. I mean, they did blow a game against the Angels, but it's not like they've blown 10, 15 games this season. But it's just how it's went. Like, just the Yankees have not found ways to get many wins this year. And yesterday was a way that they just found a way to lose. Like, they found another way to lose. And, it's frustrating because, at the beginning of the season, Chapman was automatic. And now you can't trust Chapman, and now you're trying to go to Chad Green, which I didn't disagree with going to Chad Green. I actually wanted the Yankees to go to Chad Green to start the inning. Herman pitched well, but I just wanted Chad Green to go in there, get the job done, and move on. I thought the Yankees were going to win that game. Not that I had any thought that the Yankees were not going to win that game. But I just wanted to play the safe game. I just wanted to go out there, get the job done, head into the All-Star break. Like, don't make anything complicated. Sure enough, the Yankees had to make things complicated and ended up losing. And I think, like I said, I think yesterday's game was a pure representation of how the season has went. Just, the Yankees have just not had many things go their way. And I'm not making that as an excuse. It's the truth. We haven't gotten that many wins. We haven't been successful. We had 14 walks yesterday, and we only score, we had 14 walks, and I shouldn't complain that we only scored 7 runs, but with 14 walks, you would expect this game to be blown open. The Yankees yesterday only had 8 hits, which is crazy, considering we scored 7 runs. We had 8 hits, but there was an error on Houston, and then, there was not only 8 hits. I guess it could have been worse. The Yankees at the beginning of the season were getting 2 3-hit games, but we did have only 8 hits. You look at the score and you see 7 runs. You're like, wow, they had to put up 10, 12 hits. And no, that was not the case. Houston had 10 hits, not the Yankees. And with 14 walks yesterday, you got to hope that the Yankees score more than 7 runs. And I'm not complaining that we scored 7 runs. That's another thing, too. You really can't complain that we scored 7 runs. You could sit here and say, oh, well, the Yankees did their job. The offense put up 7 runs. Yes, it wasn't pretty. It was a little bit ugly. It wasn't like you were getting all these big hits. You had a lot of walks and all that stuff. And yeah, you left a lot of runners on. But you got 7 runs. I don't care how you get them. You got 7 runs. When you go into the bottom of the 9th inning with a 5-run lead, you should be able to close that game out. That's on the Yankees bullpen. That's on Domingo Germán and Chad Green not being able to close out that game. That's it. It's simple as that. It is not on the Yankees hitting. You could sit here and say, oh, Yankees hitting this and this. No, it was on the bullpen. Germán and Chad Green single-handedly blew that game. And I'm not going to sit here and say, and bash Chad Green and all that. He had a bad performance. He's been very good this season. And I've talked about it a lot. And I do trust Chad Green over Aroldis Chapman right now in a big moment. And I was shocked that Chad Green blew that game yesterday. I was. When Germán struggled earlier, I was like, okay, bring in Green. It's not the end of the world. And sure enough, Green had a tough time as well. So, the Yankees lose yesterday there. But like I mentioned, I feel like, all these Yankees fans are going to sit here and, complain, but we did at least win the series. We did at least win the series. And we won it, 2-3, which, I would have loved the sweep, but at the end of the day, we still got the series win. And, I know I'm frustrated we weren't able to get it. I would have rather losing like a 2-1 game than losing like that yesterday, although losing stinks either way. But this is a loss that's going to stick with me until the All-Star break, until until we play Boston on Thursday. It is. And I'm sure it's going to stick with a lot of the other Yankees players. This is just this is going to, you leave Houston with a sour taste in your mouth. I'm sure a lot would have rather leaving Houston with a win and a sweep than leaving with that loss. That loss just like, and that's another thing too. Like, I'm going to be the guy here. I'm not always like this, but I'm going to be the guy here that's going to say, at least we won 2 out of 3. That loss is tough. It's very frustrating. But that loss can't get lost, quite literally. That loss can't make everything else just go away. Like that, that shouldn't make Gerrit Cole's dominant performance just go away. And let's get into Gerrit Cole's dominant performance. I mean, he was amazing. He was amazing on Saturday night. That is the best Gerrit Cole we've ever seen in a Yankees uniform. And that's why we paid him $300 million, was to go out and throw 9 innings. Not 9 innings every game. That doesn't happen. It will never happen. If you throw 9 innings every game, you're going to make the Hall of Fame no matter what. The best of the best never threw 9 innings every game. Okay, but in terms of going out there in a 9th inning, and that's what I was telling, I was watching the game, and I was like, Gerrit Cole, we've paid him $300 million to do this. Not to throw 8 innings and, 110 pitches and leave the game. No, we paid him to go out there and in big moments, in a big game, with the energy high, with the level of needing a win very high, that's why we got Gerrit Cole, is to pitch in big moments like that. And Cole went out there, got the first 2 outs, obviously Altuve single, blah, 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 and then got the first 2 outs, so on and so forth, and then Boone comes out. And this is really where the true Gerrit Cole comes out. Boone comes out, Cole's got 126 pitches. And Boone's going to take him out and bring in Chapman to have a lefty face lefty. And Alvarez has obviously hit Cole pretty well this season. When Houston came to New York in May, Houston actually was against Cole. Cole faced them, and Alvarez had 2 home runs. Now, Alvarez did not do anything that night against Cole. No one really did anything. Cole only allowed 3 hits, including 1 that came in the 9th inning, 2 hits the other 8 innings. So, what happened there is he was like, we're going to take him out. And Cole was just yelling, and I don't really have to repeat this, I'm sure you saw it, but Cole was yelling at him. He was like, he said a couple, explicitives and, told him I'm staying in this game. And Boone was like, all right. Boone didn't even say anything. Boone was kind of just standing there with his hand over his mouth about to say something, and he was kind of just like shaking his head like, okay. And he walked back to the dugout, and, and then, all the players went back to their positions, and Cole goes out there, and I'm sitting there like, I'm happy. I'm happy that he chose that. I trust Cole with 126 pitches more than Chapman without any pitches. I do, and that's sad because Chapman's been so bad recently, but it's the truth. I trust Cole with 126 pitches at the end of the game more than I trust Chapman only throwing once pretty much in a week. That's how that's really how it is. But anyway, Cole goes out there, throws the first pitch, 99 or something up in the zone. Alvarez fouls it off. Second pitch, I believe Alvarez either swung and missed, fouled it off. And an 0-2 count, and I was saying, don't throw a slider here. Whatever you do, don't throw a slider. Just don't do it. Because I didn't want to have him hang a slider or hang a knuckle curve and Alvarez with his power take that thing over the wall and that game be over. I wanted him to go back to the high fastball. Worst case scenario, it misses it and it's 1-2, you're still ahead of him. I wanted Cole that whole at-bat to just throw high fastballs, high fastballs, high fastballs. That's Cole's, I think, dominant pitch. And it was his dominant pitch in that game. He was able to locate his fastball. And sure enough, throws that high fastball, 99 on his 129th pitch of the game, which is the most anybody has thrown this season in the MLB. I believe the most that someone threw this year in the MLB was 126. Now it's Gerrit Cole's 129, and that last pitch was 99. And I was talking to someone yesterday about this, and on Saturday as well. The most impressive part of his performance was not the slider and the knuckle curve and the way he was locating his fastball. That was all great. Now, this could be accumulation of all one thing, but it was the fact that his last pitch at 129 pitches, this isn't like he's throwing his 95th pitch or his 101st pitch. This was 129 pitches. This was a guy who was just about to get taken out of the game. And I'll tell you something else in a second about Cole that I'm sure many didn't know. They said it after the game. Gerrit Cole, on that final pitch of the game, the most impressive part of that entire start, I think, was that 99-mile-an-hour pitch to finish off the game. 99 at his last pitch of the game. That's just insane. I mean, he just laid everything else on the line in that last pitch. And, it was obviously great. And you know how football is where you have a week off. So you play a game on Sunday, you don't play again until the next Sunday, unless if you have a Thursday or Monday game. But most of the time you play on Sunday, then you don't play again on Sunday. And if you have a great performance in football, you could just admire that performance for a whole week up until the next game starts, which is that next Sunday. And that's how I felt with Gerrit Cole. Like, I was like, I wish the All-Star break would just happen now so we could just admire that start by him for the next week and not have to worry about the Yankees losing or doing anything. And sure enough, the Yankees go out and blow anything. But what I thought was crazy about Gerrit Cole, and I didn't know this, he wasn't even supposed to, there was possibility that he wasn't going to pitch this weekend. Not because of anything else, not because of an injury or anything, or just the Yankees deciding not to pitch him. He actually wasn't feeling, he was actually had an illness, some sort of illness in Seattle. And supposedly he wasn't able to get all of his throwing done, wasn't able to get all of his routine done. And which is why I think some of it might have been the fact why he did not pitch. Because Cole was originally supposed to pitch Friday. Then he ended up pitching Saturday. Yeah, he ended up pitching Saturday. And Nestor Cortez ended up, having his spot on Friday. And the Yankees said something about some rain delay or something about the rain out with the Mets. But I was like, that still doesn't make sense. So they were obviously hiding a little bit because they didn't want to say it. Oh, he was not feeling great. And then sure enough, at the end of the game, Cole actually had to get an IV before the game. Before the game on Saturday, before he went out there and pitched. So I thought that was even more crazy, the fact that he wasn't even feeling 100%, and he's going out there and getting the job done. And it's just great to see. And, it was awesome to see him, dominate like that. It was awesome to see him, pitch that well. And, with everything else going on about, the spider attack and his spin rate and, is this guy really the guy we're going to want to get? He pretty much just quieted everyone and went out there and got the job done. And everyone's like, oh, this is the most important start of his career, and oh, this and this and that. And, you could tell Cole just quieted the outside noise, went out there, focused on his game, and, a 12 strikeout, 2 walk, 3 hit, no run, 9-inning pitch shutout. Complete game shutout. And that's pretty simple as that. And I can read you the stats for that game, the full stats there. It's kind of funny because I was doing a scorebook, and I did a scorebook for yesterday's game as well. Usually there's a pitching section, and at the end of the game, you got to put down all the different pitchers. So you got to put down how everyone else pitched. I put down all the pitchers, who pitches. So if there's a guy that comes in the bullpen, you got to, pull up his stats, write down all his numbers on the year, his innings pitched, strikeouts, walks, hits, runs, earned runs, all that stuff. And at the end of the game, it was funny because on the Astros side, they obviously had some pitchers. They had some more pitchers. And you have to total up all the pitchers. So how many innings they pitched, how many combined walks they had. And for Gerrit Cole, I had one pitcher, and I just had to put Gerrit Cole there, down at the total pitchers. It asked for all the pitching totals. And then I had to put Gerrit Cole down there. And I just put Gerrit Cole, and I put all of his numbers. And it was funny because, for the Astros, I got all these different guys, and I just got one Yankee. And sure enough, this was it. Through 9 innings, 3 hits, no runs, no earned, 2 walks, 12 strikeouts, 129 pitches, 83 strikes, and he lowers his ERA from 2.91 to now back down to 2.68. And quite the start going into the All-Star break. With the whole All-Star break, I don't know when the next time he's pitched. Technically, I believe how it's going is the next guy who's supposed to start was technically supposed to be Herman, and then it's Monty. But with the All-Star break and Herman's been coming in relief and Herman had a root canal, I don't know how that's going to all work. So I don't know who's going to pitch Thursday. I'd assume Cole's got to get the ball sometime over the weekend against the Red Sox. I don't think he gets it on Thursday. Maybe the Yankees go Herman, then Monty on Friday, then Cole on Saturday, and then whoever the second starter is, whether that's King or no, he's on the IL, or they put out Cortez there on Sunday. But that's what the issue is with the 3 days off. Is you kind of like, do you just go with Cole on Thursday and just start fresh there, but then Cole pitch Saturday? What do you do? And that's going to be interesting. And maybe that's why Cole's not pitching the All-Star game either. Maybe their kind of plan is, hey, let's throw him Thursday or Friday, let's see what he does. That could be interesting there too. But yeah, I mean, the Yankees now, like I mentioned, after this series, it's big. because now you got you play the Red Sox 8 of 11 days coming out of the All-Star break. So you have 4 games against them leading up into next Sunday night game. Then you have a day off Monday. Then you play 2 against Philly, and then you go to Boston for 4. So 8 of the 11 days you play the Red Sox. 8 out of 11 days coming out of the All-Star break. Obviously, there's that 1 day off a week from today, which is the next Monday. Then you play 2 against Philly, and then you play 4 more against Boston. So, it's really big, and the Yankees right now have got to. And then after that Red Sox series, you got 3 against Tampa. That's not easy either. So, realistically, the Yankees they play 11 huge games in 14 days or something like that. So they play 11 really big games in about 14 days, or about 15, whatever. Still, they play some huge pivotal games coming out of there. And then you got 4 against Boston starting up, and Elite, you're home for that. So you get back home. You're home against Boston for 4. Then you're home against Philly for 2. Philly beat us twice when the Yankees went to Philly. We'll see how that all plays out when the Yankees are home there. And then you go 4 in Boston, which is on the road. And then you go 3 in Tampa, also on the road. And then you go Miami, and that leads into August. I've read that so many times now because that's how big it is. You've got to find a way to come out and win some of those games. And I'm not talking, if you go 2-6 against the Red Sox in those 8 games, that's going to be the issue. Those are big. And those are games that you can make ground on. Let's just say the Yankees go 6-2, and then they sweep the 2-game set against Phillies. All of a sudden, you're like, wow, we're all of a sudden now, you got 8, and then, your first 10 games coming out of the All-Star break, let's just say the Yankees are 8-2, you're all of a sudden like, wow, really? We're doing this good? And then you go to Tampa, and that's the perfect situation for the Yankees. But still, if you come out of the All-Star break and you go 3-7 in that 10-game stretch, that's an issue. So the Yankees got to find somewhere in between. I would be satisfied if we went 6-4. I don't know if I should actually say that. I don't know if I should actually say I would be satisfied because 6-4 isn't great. It would depend on how we get them. It would depend on if we beat maybe the Red Sox 2 or 3 out of 4, and then when we get 1 against Philly, then we beat the Red Sox 2 more times. If that's how it is, and you beat the Red Sox a good amount, that's good. But it's big. It's huge, and the Yankees now got to completely forget about the first half. And I've always said this as a fan. When you get to the second half of a baseball season or an NBA season or an NHL season where there's an All-Star break, and I've always said this too in the NFL, with a bye week. With a bye week, that's like your reset week. In a way, the bye week in the NFL is like a little bit of an All-Star break. It's like that's your week off. That's your week to just forget, really just do what you got to do, get your mind right, come back the next week ready to play, ready to practice, ready to go out there and win some football games. That's kind of that. And I've always said that in the NFL. I've always said that in the NHL, MLB, and NBA. NHL, NBA, MLB all have All-Star breaks in the middle of the year. Obviously, the NFL has their weird Pro Bowl at the end of the year. I say it's weird because it's so odd. It's like at the end of the year, that's not like any other sport. But I've always said that when you come out of your All-Star break or in the NFL, it's a bye week, that next week you got to forget about all the other weeks that were already happened. Right? If your bye week in the NFL is week 10, those first 9 weeks, especially if they haven't gone great for you, you just got to focus up and reset and focus on the next, 6-7 games at hand. This season it's going to be 7 because there's 18 weeks and 17 games. And that's how it is in the MLB too. Yankees got to forget about the first half of the season. First half of the season's behind you. Pretend like this is a new season. Your record right now is 0-0. You have not won a game. You've not lost a game. Pretend like this is just opening day. And you're just starting up a new season. You can't focus on what happened in last season. You can't get all caught up in the record. Because if you get caught up in what happened, previously, and you get caught up in what your record is and the standings, all of a sudden things are going to happen. And you're going to start not playing good. You just got to focus on the game at hand and take it game by game. And especially when you're in the Yankees situation where you're 8 games back from first place and you're 4.5 back from a wild card, you just got to take it game by game. Because if you start looking at the big picture and you start, looking at all these games and looking at all this ground that you have to make up, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, and you're just going to lose games and lose games and lose games, and it's not going to be good. You got to take it game by game. And that starts up on Thursday against Boston, and that's a big game right there. A big game right there. Thursday against Boston, start off your second half of the season on a high note, and we'll see how it all plays out. Right, and I've said that in the NFL too. Bye week, right? If you have a bye week 10, your first 9 weeks of the season have been amazing, that's great. Can't get too caught up in that because now you got to play 7 more very good football games, and then you could really get a solid playoff spot. Here in the MLB too, right? Don't focus on what happened in the regular first half of the season. That same thing goes for any team. If you're the best team in the league, you can't get too caught up in that because then all of a sudden you're going to start losing games and you're not going to be the best team in the league. So the Yankees got to forget about the first half of the season. Definitely forget about yesterday's game. Right? You get some time off. Get some time to reset your minds. Get focused up. And when they come back on Thursday to play against the Red Sox, that's like a new season for the New York Yankees. The record for them is 0-0, and you start from there. And we'll see how it goes. Second half is big. I don't know if there's been a more big second half of the season for the New York Yankees in a long time. Because how it has been recently is the Yankees have gone into the second half of the season with a winning record and not, in a winning record and just trying to continue to win. This year, we actually need to chase a wild card spot in the second half of the season. And I do believe that these remaining games in July could really depend on what we do, not only with the rest of the season, whether we make a wild card or not, but what we do at the trade deadline, which is July 31st. If we come out firing on all cylinders, I think you buy at the trade deadline. If you come out struggling terrible, you sell. And that's big, and we'll find out. And you got to hope that the Yankees come out firing on all cylinders. That's the hope, and that's the goal. And the expectation right now is for the Yankees to just reset and come out and be a much better second half team than they were in the first half. Because, boy, was the first half not good for the Yankees. And they got their work cut out for them in the second half. 4.5 games back from a wild card, 8 back in the division. I think the division's out of hand at this point. But wild card is still in reach, and the Yankees got to win some baseball games. So that's what I got for the New York Yankees here. Series recap, kind of first half recap. Everything going on with them. We won the series against Houston, but, got to find a way to close out those games. And it stinks now that we all of a sudden have a little bit of a reliever issue because, who's going to be a reliever now? Not that I don't believe in Chad Green, but are the Yankees all of a sudden going to give up on Green and go to someone else? I mean, who's our reliever now? And maybe that's something now all of a sudden that we look at it at the trade deadline. Go out and get a closer. That's just how the Yankee season has gone. A lot of things that we've never expected are happening. I don't think many expected the Yankees to have a closer issue when we got Chapman, who's been one of the better ones in the league in the past couple seasons, and he's been struggling. So that's what I got for the Yankees. And coming up next here, I wanted to get into the MLB Draft, mainly Jack Leiter, who got taken by the Texas Rangers in the 2021 MLB Draft, the second overall pick in the draft. I wanted to get into him. Obviously, the son of former pitcher Al Leiter. Wanted to get into him, get into this pick, get into how it helps the Rangers, and just kind of get into Jack Leiter in general. I'll get into this coming up next. Alrighty, so we welcome you back here up on the podcast. So Jack Leiter taken by Rangers with number 2 overall pick in 2021 MLB Draft, and obviously yesterday was the MLB Draft. Now the MLB Draft for all years now, for most of the years now, has never been a big event. It's not as big as the NBA draft or and definitely not as big as the NFL draft. Even the NHL draft, NHL is not as popular as a sport, so a lot of their things aren't as big as other sports, and I'm not saying that against the NHL. I love the NHL. I'm just saying that in general, the NHL is not as popular as the NFL or MLB or NBA. And so the MLB draft's not as popular as many other drafts. It's different than a lot of other drafts. It's definitely a little more confusing. I, as a person who like to watch it, and I do, look at, some players and look at some options. I don't tend to talk about it too much on this podcast unless if, you get anyone special that got picked or someone like a Jack Leiter who, I'm really excited to see what he does in the MLB. So the MLB draft was yesterday, obviously not as big, and the reason it's really not as big is because number one, the MLB, number one, it's just, a lot of these guys that get drafted, they're going to have to go to the minor leagues first. And it's going to be a long journey until they even get to the MLB. Now, if you're a top 5 pick, you might be the MLB earlier than a lot of others. But if you get drafted late in the second round, there are definitely going to be, you're definitely going to have a harder time making it up. And I don't mean that in any way. I'm not trying to be negative to anyone else that get drafted in the second round. I'm just saying that, a lot of times, players, sometimes it's just the no-names that get called up to the MLB and they are dominant. Like Aaron Judge wasn't any big prospect that the Yankees drafted. He was a guy they drafted, and sure enough, look, he's one of the better players in the league right now, right? So there's a lot of guys out there, and it's going to take time. That's another reason why the MLB draft isn't as big, is because you might get drafted, but it's still going to take some time. It's going to take a couple years probably until you get up to the MLB. Now, if you're in a case like Jack Leiter or Kumar Rock or someone like that, you could be up there next season. You could be up there whenever, because that's how good they are. That's how good they can be. And it's always an exciting time for all the players to get drafted and all that stuff. So that's cool to see. Obviously, the Yankees picked yesterday. They picked Trey Sweeney, a left-handed shortstop, I believe, or a left-handed batter. I don't even know. I've never even heard of the guy. We drafted him. Not trying to be mean, but I haven't. Like I said, I'm not as big into the MLB draft now. I do know some of the guys. I knew the first overall pick, Kumar Rocker, Jack Leiter, Cole Bednar, I think his name is. I believe Bednar from Mississippi State. I know him. I know some of the guys from the College World Series because I was watching that. It's always an exciting thing to watch. But yeah, Jack Leiter got taken yesterday by the Rangers. He is one of the guys I watched. He's one of the guys that I tend to know. I know a lot more about him than a lot of the other prospects out there. I probably know about him and Kumar Rocker about the most, just because those two from Vanderbilt. We've seen them a lot. We saw them throughout the World Series. We saw them throughout the college baseball season. And Jack Leiter in general, with his last name being Leiter, and with his his dad Al Leiter being a former pitcher in the MLB, a two-time All-Star and had a very successful career. His dad was a former MLB pitcher. Leiter is a big name for baseball and for the MLB and for pitching, and obviously his son Jack Leiter out of Vanderbilt got taken yesterday by the New York Rangers with the number 2 overall pick. And I've said this for the longest time now. I've said it a couple times in the podcast when I was talking about the College World Series. I talked about it. I don't know if I've said it too much about on the podcast, but I've talked to many people about it. I really believe going into last night's draft, I was very interested to see where Jack Leiter would go. A lot of the mock drafts that I was looking at I thought a lot of people thought he was going to go to Boston, and I actually had a feeling that he was going to go there as well. Although Boston's not in a crazy need of a pitcher, I thought that's what everyone else kind of thought, and I could see Boston maybe getting him. Although Boston's not in a crazy need for a pitcher right now, they could be in need of a third starter. Chris Sale coming back from Tommy John surgery. Nathan Eovaldi has been an excellent signing for them. Outside of them, they're a little weak in the starting rotation, and I thought Jack Leiter could have been a perfect fit in that 4-3 hole down the road when he gets called up to the MLB. But the Texas Rangers, number 2 overall, they don't really got much pitching. And, last season, you look at their pitching and you look at the guys on their team and you look at it like, wow, like this team looks much better. You got Corey Kluber and you got some guys like that, and all of a sudden everyone just leaves, and the Texas Rangers pitching right now is not where they want it to be, I would say. They don't have a great rotation. The Texas Rangers actually have a lot of holes, I believe. Although I do find that most of their holes come, probably from the pitching side, if anything. They got some good guys in the lineup: Adolis Garcia, Joey Gallo, Isaiah Kinyer-Falefa. They've definitely got some good guys in that lineup. They got some guys that can do damage in that lineup. But when you get to the pitching side of things, the Texas Rangers aren't anything overpowering on pitching. They tend to struggle in the pitching department, and it's just obviously, they tend to struggle a little bit more in the pitching department, and you look at it, Mike Foltynewicz, who has not had a great season. You look at, Jordan Lyles, and, get to the bullpen like guys like Ian Kennedy, and their bullpen's, a little bit better with Ian Kennedy leading the way there. But then you look at some of the other guys here, Dane Dunning, Matt Bush, Kyle Gibson, Mike Foltynewicz. They aren't anything special. They have not a great rotation. They need a lot of help when it comes to their pitching rotation. And Jack Leiter, I believe, although many might, some might disagree, Jack Leiter had a great college career with Vanderbilt. He's got a very good fastball, mixes in the off-speed well. Him and Kumar Rocker, I love the way that they throw. I love the way that they command the zone, the way that they kind of just control the game. They throw a lot of fastballs. They get up in the zone. They use a lot of lower half. They use their I don't know how to put it, but Leiter and Kumar Rocker, and, obviously to get more tier to Leiter, they use their natural talent, right? They got a natural speed on their fastball. They've got a natural zip. They've got a natural little, spin movement on their fastball. They use that to their advantage. They get that up in the zone. They get that in the high 90s, 98, 99. They get that up there, right? And they get it so players would pop it up. And if you get it maybe a low breaking ball low in the zone with that type of spin that cuts in on our lefty or out on a righty, a backdoor curve, something like that, you get into all that stuff. They really use that to their abilities. And that's why they were so dominant in college, because they used some of their natural talent to their ability, and all of a sudden, you're getting guys out left and right here. And I think Leiter's got an overpowering fastball. It's insane. It's something else. The movement on it, the rising action on it, although a baseball does not rise the action like it does getting up in the zone. When you're up there as a hitter, it sure does look like it's rising. It can't do that. Baseball can't rise, but when it gets up in the zone, it's really, really good. And Leiter does a very good job commanding his fastball, especially up in the zone. And the Texas Rangers, they need pitching. They really do. They ain't got many pitchers. And, with them getting Jack Leiter definitely is a very smart decision, because Texas Rangers, they need pitching. And they're going to need, they're going to need guys that, they're going to need guys that are, going to be able to throw hard, going to need guys that are going to be able to, get outs, going to be able to pitch late in games. Leiter proved that in college. He was able to go 7, 8, 9 innings, get up there in the 100-pitch zone. I believe the game I watched, I watched many games, but one of the games that he was pitching, because he doesn't pitch every day, one of the games I was watching, he had he was up there in like 100 pitches. And he could go late in games too. And he's also young, so you got to be a little fair with that. That can't be anything too special because he's young. A young pitcher is going to have a lot of energy. They're going to have a lot of arm talent. They're going to be young and still fresh into the league, and they're going to be able to throw further into games. They're also going to have their max velocity right now. But when you get older and you get into the 30s, 35s, and you get into the fact where you're 10, 15 years into the league, your velocity might drop a little bit. You going 8, 9 innings might not be realistic anymore. Right now, Leiter going 8, 9 innings is very realistic because he's just coming out of college. And that's honestly what the Rangers need. And they got some other pitching prospects in the organization as well. But Jack Leiter definitely here the right pick. And I've said this. I thought Leiter was the best player in baseball, in college baseball. Vanderbilt produces very good prospects. This is only the second time in so few years here where two teammates got drafted in the top 10. And obviously Jack Leiter going number 2 to the Texas Rangers and Kumar Rocker going number 10 to the New York Mets. And I was watching the draft and Kumar Rocker was falling. And I don't know how in the world the Angels passed up on Kumar Rocker. Nothing against the guy that they drafted, but Kumar Rocker is another level. I thought he was the second best pitcher in draft, only outside of Jack Leiter, who I thought was the best overall player in the draft. In terms of his stuff, in terms of how much he can impact the game, yes, it was Jack Leiter. And you're probably not going to change my mind on that because I strongly believe, you look at the numbers, look at what he's able to do, he's another level. And I thought Kumar Rocker was behind him. I've said it. Vanderbilt, that's why they got so far. Now, did they win? No, they did not win the College World Series. But with them, too, that was a big part of why they got to the College World Series. And I was surprised to see Kumar Rocker fall all the way to number 10. I think he was a top 5, top 3 talent, but he fell to number 10. I was shocked to see that. And the Mets got a really special one in Kumar Rocker as well. Another guy too, CeCe talked about it yesterday. CeCe Sabathia, obviously a former Yankee pitcher, had a great career. He obviously talked about it in terms of how he uses off speed. He's not just the guy that's going to throw out, I feel like throwing it off speed here. No. Certain counts, certain situations, certain hitters. He loves to just utilize his off speed in certain situations. And he commands his off speed really well. Sometimes when you overuse your off speed and just want to throw off speed just to throw it, that's when home runs are hit. That's when, runs are scored, and that's when all those issues come around. When you be patient with it, when you throw it when you need to throw it, when you don't overthrow your off speed, when you do your job, you're going to be very good. And Leiter definitely, it's great. It's great. And, it's great to see. It's great to see Leiter, a guy to get picked up. And, like I mentioned, there are a lot of guys that, I like Leiter a lot. I enjoyed watching him in college. I've really grown to be, a Leiter fan here. And I hope that he has a great career. Obviously, a guy who, obviously his father's household name, Al Leiter, who's a former MLB pitcher as well. And, you look at the Rangers here, and they obviously need pitching help. And I was actually watching the Rangers-A's game the other day, and Fultonevich, I believe, was out there on the mound, and he wasn't commanding. He wasn't getting anything special. And I do believe that, although a lot of guys, they tend to take a long time to get up to the MLB, it takes a long time. I do believe that Leiter will be up there in a short amount of time. I mean, Chris Sale, I believe, got up there in the shortest amount of time. He got drafted in June and was up there like 60 days later. He was up in the major leagues like 60 days after. I don't know if Leiter's going to be that quick. Leiter will join the minor league organization, and we'll see how everything plays out. Now, I could see Leiter, if everything goes as planned and he does his job, I could see him up in the major leagues very soon. I don't know so much about this season. Maybe could be this season because the Rangers are not going to they're not making a playoff push. So maybe if you get to September and those games mean nothing and they're just trying to get some of the young guys playing time, maybe you could see him get called up. Although he just got drafted, I don't know I don't know his whole minor league situation yet. They're going to have to figure that all out. I could see maybe next season. I don't think he's going to be in the minor leagues for long, especially if he does his job. They probably will start him out in Double-A. If he pitches well there, I think they'll only need to see a couple starts out of him. Then he'll go to AAA, and then, AAA's a decent jump, and you'll have to see how he does there. If he does well there, I could see him with the Rangers sometime next year or maybe the year after that. He's not going to be I don't think he's going to take a long time. I don't think it's going to be a long time until Jack Leiter is up in the major leagues. And I do think he probably will go to spring training with them, which is a big help. Especially an opportunity there for him to prove himself. I do think that he will probably go to spring training with the Rangers. But if you had to ask me, I don't think Leiter's going to be in the minor leagues for a long time. I don't think this is a guy that's going to get lost in the minor leagues. I think this is a guy that's going to be up very soon. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be making impact. And I think he's going to have a very successful career. I mean, you see what he's done at Vanderbilt. You see what he's able to do, how he throws his fastball, that stuff. He's something else. I definitely think he will be with the Rangers soon. I don't think it's going to be anything long. I don't think he's just going to be in the minor leagues forever and finally get his opportunity. Rangers got a really good one here, and they're going to utilize him. Man, I can tell. All right, so let's get to this quick article here. Jack Leiter taken by Rangers with number 2 overall pick in the 2021 MLB Draft. Vanderbilt ace Jack Leiter parlayed his breakout college season into being selected number 2 overall by the Texas Rangers in the 2021 Major League Baseball Draft. Pitching alongside fellow top prospect Kumar Rocker, Leiter was the most talked about player in college baseball this season. He was a well-regarded player coming into 2021, blowing through 15 2/3 innings in his first year at Vanderbilt last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. MLB.com's Jonathan Mayo ranked the right-hander as the 6th best draft-eligible player this year in the initial rankings in December. Like I said, I think he was the best. He was the most talked about. I mean, he was something else. After starting this season allowing just one earned run in his first 7 starts, including a streak of 20 consecutive innings without allowing a hit, Leiter put himself squarely in the mix with rocker and Texas high school shortstop Jordan Lawyer to go number 1 with number 1 overall. In the MLB.com's final draft rankings, the 21-year-old was the top prospect in this class. Leiter usually works at 90 to 95 mile an hour and tops out at 97 with his fastball, which plays like an elite pitch because of its riding life and outside metrics such as induced vertical break. He gets an exceptional amount of swings and misses in the strike zone with his heater. Like I mentioned, he's able to get his heater high there. He also has a 12-6 curveball in the upper 70s that can both land for strikes and get hitters to chase. And his feel for spin also translate into a low 80s slider that some evaluators think has more upside than his curve. Leiter was the most dominant pitcher in college baseball this season. He had a 2.13 ERA with 48 hits allowed, 45 walks, and 179 strikeouts. 48 hits allowed, 45 walks, and 179 strikeouts, and 110 innings pitched. The 21-year-old allowed more than 3 hits in just 4 of his 18 starts. As the Rangers continue to rebuild their farm system, the addition of Leiter gives them a potential frontline starter to build around. Their recent track record developing starting pitchers has been a problem. Even when they were making the playoffs in 2015-2016, Martin Perez was a disappointment before leaving as a free agent after the 2018 season. Yu Darvish was great for them, but he also developed as a pitcher during his time in Japan. However, Leiter's track record and pedigree as one of the nation's best pitchers at one of the best baseball schools in the country is an encouraging sign for the Rangers. He likely won't need a lot of time in the majors before being called up to anchor their starting rotation. Like I mentioned, I don't think he's going to need much time. This last sentence here, he likely won't need a lot of time in the minors before being called up to anchor their starting rotation. Also, kind of hints that he's not going to need much time. He'll do his job in the minor leagues, and as long as everything goes planned, as long as he's successful, they'll call him up, and we'll see what he's all about when he gets to the major leagues. And I've always said this, right? So football, right? Basketball, the prime schools are for basketball. Now it's kind of different, but for the most part, it's been Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, those schools. Now it's more Gonzaga, Baylor's coming along, all those schools. Now there's more schools that are really starting to come along. That's why they call them the Blue Bloods. Football, it's like Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, LSU starting to come along. Miami was big. I would say Miami, you could still consider it, big. I mean, Miami back then when they were getting all those guys like Michael Irvin and Ed Reed and all them guys, they were a big school. Now they're good, but they're not as good as they were back in the early 2000s. Right now, it's more Alabama and Clemson are your big football schools. And in baseball, it's Vanderbilt. It's Vanderbilt. Ole Miss is good. Virginia can get a good team. Mississippi State, obviously, this season had a good team. But in terms of prospects, in terms of producing MLB talent, it's Vanderbilt. And that's how it is. It's the nation's best school for baseball. Football, it's Clemson, Alabama. Basketball, it's like Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina. Now Gonzaga, Baylor, teams like that are coming along. But that's how it is in college. You have 1 or 2 really good schools. And Vanderbilt's like the Alabama for baseball. It is dominant. They produce a lot of prospects. They're producing more. They got good coaching staff over there. They got a lot of really good players that have come out of there. And that's like the same thing about Alabama and Clemson. You get like Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne. Those are some of the recent ones. Now here, Leiter. You got Swanson who's came out of there. Dansby Swanson who plays for the Braves. Now you get Kumar Rocker. They're like the dominant baseball school. And Jack Leiter will now be heading to the Texas Rangers. And, it's something that's super exciting. I'm excited. Especially, it's even more exciting because, right, this is a guy who I've followed really since he was even in high school. You could follow him. That's how high, he was a very highly touted prospect. The Yankees originally drafted him, and then he decided just to go to college. That's what's weird about the MLB draft. So he ended up, and obviously knowing that his dad was Al Leiter, right? This is a guy that I followed really since he was in the high school days. And then he obviously goes to college in Vanderbilt, and then now he's in the MLB, or now he's going to the MLB, and that's just something I think pretty cool. Is I'm excited to see, I think it's super, super exciting to see, I've always enjoyed following players. Right now, like this is someone who I followed. I followed him through high school and college now, and now it's going to this next level. And it's going to be exciting to see if he does turn into something. To watch him grow all those years would be super fun. So Jack Leiter is the newest member of the Texas Rangers, and it's definitely an exciting time, and I definitely think he will be he's definitely gonna have a good career, I believe. And it's a guy who does a lot of things right. I talked about his fastball. In the article, they talked about his fastball. His slider, his curve, mixes that in really well. A very good pitcher, and I believe was the best prospect in the draft. So that's what I got for Jack Leiter and him getting drafted to the Texas Rangers. As for the NBA, yesterday the Bucks won 120-100. As I mentioned earlier, Suns really got beat as the Bucks moved to 2-1 up. The Bucks now make the series 2-1 now. As for the MLB, yesterday the Dodgers won, Angels won, Rockies won, Giants won, Twins won, Reds won, A's won, White Sox won, Phillies won, Pirates won, Marlins won, and Blue Jays won. Yankees lost yesterday. Mets also lost 6-5, as I mentioned earlier. Mets blew a 5-0 lead. Lindor and Conforto had some early home runs in that first inning. They blew the 5-0 lead. Red Sox scored 2 in the 5th, 2 in the 6th, and 2 in the 9th. And the Pirates, not the Reds. Did I say the Red Sox? I don't know. I said Pirates scored 2 in the 5th, 2 in the 6th, and 2 in the 9th. And the Pirates had 15 hits. So the Pirates got the win there. And the Mets now move to 47-40 on the season. And now their first half is officially done as well. The Yankees lost yesterday 8-7. Yankees moved to 46-43, as I mentioned earlier. Not able to get the job done. It's frustrating. It's tough. It's not too exciting. To see that. And now we head into the All-Star break. And we got to try to find a way to just forget about the first half of the season and focus up on the second half. And in fantasy baseball, it's a little weird. So you continue your matchup up until July 15th. So technically, this matchup's pretty much done. July 18th, rather. So we will continue our matchup up until July 18th. And right now, I am currently losing 367 to 277. And today I've got nobody going, obviously, given that it's the All-Star break. Although I do have some injury updates to report here. Before we'll get to anything else here, I got an update on Alex Bregman that came out on Saturday. So Bregman quadriceps said he expects to begin his rehab assignment in AAA Sugar Land in mid-July. Chandler Rome of the Houston Chronicle reports. So that's his report there. And then there's two other reports. So Carlos Correa is out right now. Correa illness remains out of the lineup Sunday against the Yankees. Brian McTaggart of MLB.com reports. So he was out. He's on the COVID list. And Jonathan Loaizaga as well is on the COVID list. Yankees placed Loaizaga on the COVID-19 injured list Saturday. So he is out there as well. Not too great there, but that's that. I've not made any moves there otherwise. By the way, Garrett Cole got me 44 points off of his performance on Saturday. So that's how good he was. He got 44 points. And it's big because I was getting smoked and now I'm still getting smoked, but it's a little bit less. I'm not getting smoked. I'm not getting beat as bad. I was getting beat by like 120. Now I'm only losing by like 90. So it's not as bad, but Cole's a big part. I mean, my lineup's producing points. It's not like they're not producing. It's just the fact that he's almost got over 300 points. So he's had a big week. He's got a good team, the guy that I'm playing. I believe he's up. I believe he's got at least the same record as me or a little bit better of a record. So it's kind of a close matchup, but I definitely got him. I've definitely been beat this week, big time. And it's been, I've always mentioned losing's not very fun. So I got to find a way to that's the one thing I've always said about fantasy. I love fantasy. It's awesome. I do it for all four sports. This is my first year doing it for baseball. Hockey was my first year this year. Basketball was my second year. And football, I've been doing it for 4 or 5 years now. I've always said this about fantasy sports. Baseball, basketball, hockey, and football. I've always said this about all the fantasy. I've always said that, right, fantasy, it's awesome, right? Drafting your players, all that, that's in your control. But injuries, how they perform, that's out of your control. And I've always said that, like, you can only do so much in fantasy. You can bench this guy, you can put in this guy, you could put in, this guy, you could pitch this guy, you could have this guy at that position, you could switch this guy over here, you could drop this guy, you could pick this guy up. You could do all those different things. But at the end of the day, you cannot do, it's out of your control of how they perform. And if they get injured, that's out of your control too. Like, if you pick up a guy that's never gotten injured before and he tears his ACL, that's bad. And I shouldn't use torn ACL, but he gets injured, that's bad. I will get into Acuna as well. It's terrible to see him get injured and tear his ACL like that. That's not good. He is done for the season. And that's not just good. That's not just bad for the Braves. That's bad for the whole sport of baseball. And hopefully he comes back better than ever. But that's what I've been saying about this whole time. I've always said that about fantasy. Like, right, I've always said this. Like, you could say, let's say I decide to put this guy in the lineup, and he performs terrible. That's out of my control. Like, I can't do anything about that. Now, you could do something about who you put in, who you don't. If you bench the guy that had a good performance, that is in your control. You could have not benched that guy. But injuries, like if there's a guy that you draft and he's very injury prone, that's in your control if he gets injured or not. Like, that part is. Like, that's why drafting's so big. Like, drafting's so pivotal. Because you draft the right guys, more than likely you're going to do good. If you draft like an injury-prone player and he's getting injured, well, you shouldn't have drafted him, and you know that. Now, if you draft a guy that's never been injured before or very rarely gets injured and he gets injured, that's out of your control. Same thing with the performances. So, and by the way, fantasy football will be starting up soon. I will probably be doing my draft about a month and a half from now, probably. It's July 12th, so probably later August I'll be doing my draft, but definitely going to be exciting. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for training camp and all that stuff to start. So, but yeah, fantasy, it's fun, but it's a lot of decision making, and it's a lot of just interesting. It's interesting, but anyway, it's fun though. But a lot of it's out of your control. You can't do much about it. Like, you can't do much about this guy and all that stuff. So. With all that being said, though, that will do it for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. It was a very good podcast in the books, and good way to start off the week podcast. So hopefully everybody enjoys the rest of their day. Enjoy the home run derby tonight. If I had to put money on it, I would probably say Alonso has a good chance of winning. But I wouldn't be surprised to really see anyone winning. If I had to put money on it, I would probably say Alonso. I just think he's got the most power. I would say him. But I think Ohtani, he plays very well in that ballpark. Story knows the ballpark well. I think you could say a couple names. So enjoy the home run derby. Hopefully it's exciting. I think with the thin air and the altitude at Coors Field, I think that makes it extra special. I think there's going to be a lot more long home runs. I think you're going to see some 500-foot home runs. I think you're going to see some bombs. And it's going to be exciting. So definitely enjoy the home run derby. And, other than that, that's what I got for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching.